Welcome to WP Café, episode number 105 with me, Keith Devon, and my co-host, Mark Wilkinson. WP Café is the WordPress podcast and YouTube show where we talk about WordPress development and running a WordPress business, warts and all, I guess. Thank you so much for joining us today. If you're here with us live on YouTube, if you are joining us live, please do say hello in the comments. Let us know who you are, where you're from, and as we're chat through various topics today, if you've got any specific questions for us, we always love to, engage with the people that are watching along. It creates a much better show. If you do enjoy watching today's show, please do consider leaving us a like. You could subscribe if you want more content like this, either on YouTube or on your podcast player of choice. Mark, how are you doing today, and how has your week been?
I am very well, thank you. Yes, our week, my week has been really good. Been busy.
Yep.
Involved a trip down to London, which was on Tuesday and Wednesday. So it was nice to catch up with you. We were down to pitch a project, our very first in-person pitch in 8 years of running High Rise Digital. I think it went all right, but I don't know.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
I think most people would find that just like a bit ridiculous that we've been in business for so long and we've never actually had to like formally pitch for a project. I think that's generally a good thing. I mean, we haven't. I don't think we've refused to do it too often. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not like we've been asked to do it and we've been like, no, we don't do that. It's more just like we normally send a proposal across and then it's like yes or no. There's only one.
This was a current client as well, wasn't it?
Yes, which also made it even weirder in a way. Of all the things to pitch for the first time ever, like someone that you've worked with for 6 years. It was kind of odd, but so we didn't have to do it in person, did we? But we decided that it was we owed it to them for being such a good client and such, you know.
Yeah, they gave us the option of whether we wanted to do it like over a video call, and we just thought, well, it'd be nice to catch up. It'd be nice to see them as well. Like, we hardly ever see them, and they've been a client for like, I think it's 8 years. I think pretty much when we started High Rise. So it kind of makes sense to just go down and do a pitch. And we kind of like, because it was the first pitch we've ever done in person, it was very much like, I sort of took the approach, give a brief overview of what we were pitching and why we thought it was well. And essentially, it was just let them ask questions and talk and bring their concerns to us, and we can try and answer them. So that's the sort of a format that we went for. Whether that was right or wrong, we'll find out if we win.
I think it went well. I was a bit nervous about that format because I was nervous about the whole thing, really, like kind of because we hadn't done it before, and I wasn't really sure what they were expecting. Like, were they expecting some flashy presentation? You know,
well, that's not
a slide deck, and no, it's just not. It isn't. But I think they seem to respond well. Whenever you said we're going to just basically leave loads of room for questions, there would seem to be a lot of nodding, like, yeah, we've got questions.
Well, I just thought, like, you've got us here. Like, the opportunities to speak to us and ask the questions that perhaps you couldn't have asked as easily over email or video or whatever. You know, it'd just be Why have it all us talking? Where actually it could be them asking questions about the project, about concerns they have. Anything like that. So, and they kind of did, and we did our best to answer them. So, fingers crossed, we'll win the work. But who knows? We'll see.
Hopefully,
yeah.
So we've got a few things to chat about today. One big topic is explaining taxonomies to clients. So we're going to try to tackle that because that's something that's come up with us recently. Also, explaining taxonomies to ourselves, and to each other, and just like trying to understand which taxonomy to reach for, whether it's a category or a tag or something custom. So we'll talk about that. We're also going to be talking about block binding. So Mark, I think you've had a little play with the block bindings API to see if you can get things working. So we'll have a little chat about that. And then you've just put in blue sky at the end. So that'll be interesting to, there's been a lot of people seem to be moving across to blue sky, so we can have a little chat about that at the end. So first up, explaining taxonomies to clients. Do you want to give the intro to this and how it came about?
So regular listeners will know that we're currently building a website for a school, and they have lots of news articles, which is great. And in the discussions, about how to build this sort of section, it was thought about how we're going to, well, they called it categorize, which makes sense. I think what we're talking about is classifying content, and how can we do that? So the client kind of came up with what they called level 1, level 2 ways of categorizing content, which I thought was really interesting. And the level 1 was like prep, sixth form, junior, something else I can't remember. So that sort of thing. And then the level 2 was community events, beyond the classroom, sports, those sorts of things. So I think in our chats we had, we were sort of thinking that there wasn't really a level here. Like one wasn't hierarchically more important than the other one. So I was struggling to understand why they'd split it into like what they considered level 1. Now maybe it wasn't the case, but the fact that they called one level 1 and one level 2 like types of classification, to me says that they consider that as almost like a hierarchy. Like we assign a level 1 thing first, that's the most important, and then we can assign things under that afterwards. So we were chatting through this, and it became clear to us, I think, that we should have a taxonomy, a grouping in WordPress called school level. So, and then the second one, what they called level 2, would just be probably just categories and categories of content. And then we'll probably use tags as well to tag in some keywords and things like that. So it got to the point where we were sort of explaining this to the client and trying to explain why that is the best approach. Then they started asking whether we could put other things in what we'd call the school level group. Boarding, for example, was one of them. And we were like, well, that's not a school level. So why would you want it in the school level group? And it just got all very complicated to understand.
And the answer is because it's important. It feels like it should be. It was weird, wasn't it?
Yeah, really, really weird. And it just got me thinking, how do you explain to clients what the difference is between categories and tags? That's kind of the obvious one that we all come across every day. And whether you need a taxonomy to group something, or can you just use categories? So, for example, we could have all of those things as categories in the post-category taxonomy. We could have prep, junior, sixth form, boarding, sports, community event. They could all just be something, and then you could assign them and not assign them. So why don't we do that? Why do we then split these out into different groupings? Like, I think it's right to do that, but I struggle to explain why that is the case.
Because the whole point of doing this in the first place is to make information easier to find.
Okay.
Isn't that the whole point of classifying data? To make it kind of easier to find the stuff that is relevant?
Yes. I have my developer head on, and it's actually... it's also easier to, I suppose it's the same thing. It's easy to find data, as in, I'm on this page, so I want to pull articles associated with this page. I'm on the events page, which is a page, so I want to pull the latest 3 events posts, which are in the events category. So I suppose you're right in a way. Even if I'm a developer or I'm a user, it's easier to find content.
But it's primarily about the user, though, isn't it? I mean, if things are assigned a term in a taxonomy, then yes, as a developer, you can pull that data and manipulate that and show it where you want to show it, whatever. But the idea is to show it where the user wants to see it. Like that's kind of the whole end goal. So I think it's quite useful to think about it in terms of that, especially with like categories. And we often say you probably don't want more than 7 to 10 top level categories, like you don't want more than 7 main menu items along the top of your website. It's the same kind of idea. More than that, and it's really hard to parse. And
I agree with you, but why?
Because it's hard to parse.
I'm the client. and explain why can I only have 10 categories?
Well, you can have more, but it's just going to make it more difficult for your visitors to find the category that is relevant to them.
Okay.
Right? Because if you have to search a list of like 20, it's much harder than searching a list of 6. Like to narrow, because you're trying to narrow down content to something that is appropriate to you or relevant to you. And if I have 200 terms to narrow it down by, it's not really helping me, Whereas if I have 5, if I can reduce the thing down by picking from 5 items, then I know I'm like narrowing things down to something that might make sense. There's lots of potential examples that we can give, in the jobs world, which we operate in these days. Location, country, might be a really good way to just narrow stuff down quickly, although there's a lot of countries, but maybe that's a terrible example. Job type, whether it's or like contract type, whether it's full-time, part-time, just things that people can obviously see and go, right, I can ditch all the rest of those because I'm focused on this, and they can do that quickly. I think that's important. Otherwise, you could just say, well, you could just rely on search rather than doing any of this classification. And you could argue that classifying things makes search more powerful, but you could just rely on keyword searches for everything. But yeah, I don't know. Categories for me are the kind of main topics of a website.
I agree.
Tags
I agree.
Or everything else. You might want to be able to search by this thing, but it's not something people will come to the site and expect to see in a main menu or in a in a sidebar. So yeah, but then there's custom taxonomies. So when do they come in? I just think it's when they just feel really distinct. I don't know. Like in that example, like the school groups or school, what do they call it? School level, school type
levels, yeah.
School levels. That to us that felt quite definitive before they started adding in kind of things that kind of spanned multiple levels.
Yeah.
The other interesting one was alumni, wasn't it? So they had their
that was the prep, one they wanted to put as a school level.
Yeah,
I think we've agreed to that actually because they insisted on it.
But it sort of makes sense because you can't be an alumni until and a junior prep at the same time. Yeah. So for me, that sort of made sense because you're kind of going through the pathway of the school. You eventually become an alumni, whereas boarding just didn't feel like a school level at all. Yeah, it just felt like something that was.
For school levels, we're not saying you can only choose one of those because you might have an article, Charity Walk 2024, and actually the whole school does it. So you want to tick all of those because you want to say it is a prep, it is junior, it is sixth form, everyone's doing it. So then it comes back to then, like, why is that a separate taxonomy? Can't we just make those categories? Because you can easily then still search for sixth form articles about sports. Just tick the both of them. And we're only adding like 5 to that category list. And don't get me wrong, I'm playing devil's advocate here because I think we're doing it the right way. I think it is the right way, but I do struggle to explain both to myself and to clients why that is the right way.
I think if there had only been 10, so including so we had 5 school levels, and then there was 5 other categories that they wanted to add. I think we could have just done that in a categories or topics or whatever, single taxonomy. But I think because the other list was quite long, 12 or 15, I can't remember. It didn't feel like, it felt like school levels. We could group that into something useful. And from a visitor's point of view, my kid goes to this, is in this part of the school. I want to see stuff that's relevant to them. It felt right to me.
Yeah. But as I said, I think we've got it right. But explaining this to people is extremely difficult when I don't really explain it to myself very well, which becomes a bit strange.
Elliot's just posted. Hello, Elliot. Elliot said you'd use custom taxonomy to avoid muddying up post categories and tags. Also, tags are a way to group multiple posts in a single category. So yeah, that's something we haven't spoken about actually. Is different post types. So they can obviously have their own taxonomies as well. So that's an obvious use case, for a custom taxonomy. or a set of taxonomies.
Tags are a way to group multiple posts in a single category. But even if they weren't tags, I could still find all of the posts which are in category A, B, and C.
Yeah.
Just as I can find all the posts that are in category A tagged with B and C.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. From a find point of view, it's very similar, actually.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. I haven't thought about like tags as kind of like term groupings. I actually asked ChatGPT about this. I just thought it'd be interesting to see what the kind of hive mind for this comes back with. And it was actually I thought it was really good. So categories, purpose, broad classification, high level organization of content. Best for grouping content into main topics or sections that users are likely to navigate. Characteristics, hierarchical, required, used in navigation. Use categories when you have a limited number of high-level topics. The structure is fixed and doesn't change often. You want to create navigational structure like sidebars, menus, breadcrumbs. So yeah, that was categories. And then for tags, it said purpose, micro classification describing specific details, attributes, or keywords related to the content. Best for connecting related posts that span different categories. Characteristics, non-hierarchical, optional, used for specific details. So yeah, and then custom taxonomies, advanced classification, creating custom structures that categories or tags don't adequately cover. Best for when you need a specialized classification that doesn't fit under general categories or tags. Use custom taxonomies when you require an additional layer of organization. Yeah, I mean, that all makes sense to me. But it was hard. It was really hard to explain it. And the fact that they initially came up with this level 1 and level 2 thing was like,
it's interesting.
Yeah, it showed that their minds were thinking completely differently than ours at that point.
So Elliot says, thank you, Elliot. But you might have code as a category and then PHP, HTML, CSS, MySQL, etc. as tags, grouping multiple posts in a single category.
Right.
So why? Okay. Again, I think you're right, Elliot. But I'm playing devil's advocate here. Why can't PHP, HTML, CSS be sub children of the category of the code category, like child categories? I think you're right. I do think they should be tags, but and this is what I'm saying. I can't explain. Every time I come up with a rule, it just gets broken by something. And I think ChatGPT's explanation there was very vague. You know, the top level. What did he say? The broad categorization of your content or something. I don't know.
Best for grouping content into main topics or sections that users are likely to navigate.
Yeah, I don't know. It's difficult. What's the main topic without knowing what you're going to write about?
Well, exactly. Well, and even if you do know what you're going to write about, so people often use like recipe websites or cooking websites as an example of kind of classifications. So an ingredient, a specific ingredient might be a tag.
Would be a tag,
because you don't want categories for every ingredient. That makes sense. But what are the top level categories? Are they cuisines? So is it like Chinese, French, Mexican, Italian, Indian, French? Yeah. Or is it breakfast, lunch, dinner?
Yeah.
Or, you know,
main starter, main dessert.
It could be, yeah, exactly. Are each of those like custom taxonomies?
And that depends on the user, doesn't it? That depends on me. I'm landing on this website. I want to cook something for my tea. Therefore, I want to find something for tea. So I want that category. Or I might want to come and say, well, I've got a dinner party and I've got a starter and a pudding. I want a main course. So I'm going to hit main course. Depends on what the user's intent is when they arrive at the website.
Mm-hmm.
So by making those decisions for the user, sometimes it makes it more difficult. That's a good example of the cooking one. I think this is less complicated than that, actually, because there's not.
I agree.
People will generally come to the same reasons. It's not as difficult.
Yeah. And obviously, there's no right answer generally because it depends on your niche and your sub niche. So, like, if you're your recipe website, a general one, then you might have all those cuisines. But if you're a Chinese food recipe website, then your top level categories are probably not going to be cuisines. They're going to be something below that. Maybe it's regions of China. Maybe it's whatever. I don't know. But yeah, there's no hard and fast rules. I think it's more about what users expect when they get to the site. Like, how are they going to want to kind of divide up the data? Yeah.
Elliot says again, it can be used in multiple ways with the approach being and how well it suits the content structure. I'd argue, and this is the bit here, I'd argue you could approach it in multiple ways. And I think that's true for every project and every type of content. You can approach it in multiple ways. And what I think for me is there's no sort of set rule that I sit down and think, right, here's my content, or this is the sorts of articles we want to get. Let's follow this ruling, and then we'll come up with the right answer. You know what I mean? There isn't any of that. It's kind of looking and thinking, well, how do we want to group them? Well, let's have some categories, and then what are they going to be? And that's why I find it extremely difficult to explain to someone else why I've come up with the categorization or the classification of content that I have, because I don't actually know. It just kind of makes sense in my mind, and that's why I think this whole topic is extremely interesting to discuss, because I think we mainly come to the same answer, but sometimes for different reasons. And sometimes we come to a completely different answer, which still makes sense, by the way. That's the key. It still works, like the recipe one that you just said. You could approach that in loads of different ways. All of them would make sense to most people. And only some people, they'd be like, oh, I wish I could just search for a main course, but you've decided to go the different way. So anyway, so what we've gone with categories. We've got community events, academic achievements beyond the classroom, boarding, development, and a few others. We've gone for school levels, which is prep, junior, sixth form, alumni. There might be another one in there, I can't remember.
Yeah.
And then we've gone for tags. So there's an article here that I've just been copying across and formatting and putting into the staging site, which is CCF Annual Charity Day. What was CCF again? You told me the other day.
Combined Cadet Force.
Thank you. And it's about the Royal British Legion. So I have tagged that with CCF. I've tagged that with fundraising, because it's about a fundraiser charity day. And I have tagged that with Royal British Legion. So hopefully that makes sense to people. So you could easily find all articles on, the Royal British Legion for the prep classes.
So sorry, how did you categorize that one? And
I've put that in community and events.
Yeah.
Obviously, the client will yes or no these. I'm just kind of putting what I think in there, because the current site doesn't really categorize anything very well at all. But I just thought I wanted to get some posts up so we could see some actual posts with categories and what they look like. So
absolutely.
Went for community and events. Potentially you could just go for one. I mean, it's an event, charity day. You could just say it's charity day, it's an event. So either way, it'd be fine. So that's taxonomies, classifying content.
Let's move on to our second topic. Debugging card block not working was your note.
Yeah.
What's this?
This was just me being absolutely stupid, and
good.
I bet other people have done this and probably don't own up to it. So
go on then.
We've built a card block using advanced custom fields to do our cards. We've covered the reasons for that on other episodes. So we want to change the style and various different things and hide and show different fields based on what the style is. So we've gone for the card block in advanced custom fields. And actually this last week, I've been trying to make it so we can use the card block in many different ways. So for example, the first way is I want to put a card on a page with a call to action. So I want to just go in, I want to add a title, I want to put an image on, I want to add a link, etc. And then it works. So that's like a custom content card, we've called that one. I might then want to show a link to an internal piece of content. So that is like, I want to show a link to this page, and it's going to pull its featured image, it's going to pull its title, and it's going to link to the permalink page. But I also might want to use the card in a query loop. So I want it to pull that information, the image from the featured image, the title from the post title. I want to pull it from the current post. So I've done that, made it all work and beautiful. So then we wanted to show related content underneath each single post. So the idea here, we had a chat with the client and keep it relatively simple. Let's grab the current category of that post. And I know it could have more than one. So we're going with the Yoast's primary category. You assign a primary category. So we'll get that.
Yeah.
And then we'll make it so that the query block queries for posts in that category, and we'll exclude the current post. So you don't get the same post you're on in that list.
Yeah.
So did that on local. All was working beautifully. I even managed to do my query args filter on the query block when we had our class on the block. So it happened and did all that, finding the category and everything. Then I saved all that to the theme, deployed it to the live site, and related content, nothing on there at all on the front end. So I was like, right, that's probably because there isn't any and something's wrong. So I thought I'll just add a few more posts, maybe something weird. Nothing, still nothing. Right. Like, what's going on? So I'm back and forth trying to work it out. I eventually, after about half an hour, I looked at the markup, and the markup had the query block there. It had the UL, which is the post template block, and it had the LI, it had the list item for one of the items. So I'm like, hang on, there is an item there, but there's nothing inside it.
Right.
My card block mustn't be active on this site. That's what it must be. So into the plugins list, our new plugin for card block, active, perfect. Okay. So I'm like, what is going on? Do we have an allow list on the blocks? So I'm checking that. Have we only allowed certain blocks and I haven't put this in the block? No, we have a disallow list. So we're actually taking blocks away, not putting blocks in. Mm-hmm. So I was lost. The problem was that I didn't have advanced custom fields installed on the staging site.
Yeah.
So I built a block with advanced custom fields and it just wasn't on there and activated. So interesting, on the front end, like there's nothing gets output. On the back end, when I actually looked at my template, it comes up with that message that says whatever you've called the block, it says your block isn't available on this site.
Right.
So it's only when I looked in there, why you didn't look in there to start with, I don't know, but I didn't. I looked in there and I was like, oh, why is the card not blocked there? That's weird. And then again, I went through the process. Our plugin was installed, and it just took me so long to work out that ACF wasn't installed. So it couldn't render the block. And according to WordPress, like the block didn't exist.
Yeah.
So that was 2 hours of my life wasted. So if you're in the same situation and you're building ACF blocks, please just check that Advanced Custom Fields is actually active on the website, because it was frustrating. It was one of those moments that you think,
can we make our plugin dependent on ACF Pro?
Yeah, that'd probably be a good idea. Yeah, so you can't activate it without ACF Pro being activated. Yeah,
I'm just thinking, is there like something that can stop that happening again? Because it's the sort of thing I do all the time as well.
You used to do that where you sort of like you check whether the function in ACF was available, function exists, and then you deactivate the plugin straight away with a message in the admin. But I've got half a feeling that there's something in the header you can put in your plugin now that says requires
I think
these like dependencies. So maybe that's the case.
So.
If anyone knows how to do that, then let us know, because it saved me looking it up.
Elliot will know. Function to check if another function or plugin exists, and there's a it's just not quite. Yeah, I think there is plugin dependencies now.
Well, it would have saved me a lot of time if I'd have done that, but I didn't. So there you go.
Yeah,
you learn your lessons.
Good.
You learn your lessons.
I forgot to put on the list of topics just a little thing, little kind of interesting challenge that I was working on this week, which was responsive, fluid typography with container queries, which was quite cool. So we've been banging on about this card block a lot. And one of the things whenever you're building, I guess, any kind of component for the web, is you don't necessarily know how that's going to be used, like the context of it.
Yeah.
So with my card block, it could be in a set of columns, and there could be 5 columns, there could be 2 columns. So the thing could be 150 pixels wide, or it could be 600 pixels wide whenever, like, Gutenberg's wide
WordPress 2 columns,
like breakpoint is these days. It breaks into a single column at like 600 pixels. So things can really change. And obviously I had these card designs. They were designed at desktop and mobile, to be fair, but it just looked totally wrong whenever it's like 600 pixels wide and it has this tiny text in the middle of it. And at really small sizes, some of them with like quite a lot of text were like just it was just breaking the layout completely. So yeah, I was fiddling about with container queries, and I thought I was going to use some kind of clamp function, and maybe that might have worked. Clamp being basically setting a min and a max with a like viewport width or container query width unit in the middle that it tries to get to. So it tries to get to that value until it hits the min and it hits the max. So that's what clamp does. But then I was thinking, we've got these like font hierarchy rules, and it just breaks them, because the font size for that particular element is related to its container width, not to the hierarchy at that
to the
point.
hierarchy, yeah.
So I was like, I don't really want to go about messing with that. So what I ended up doing was doing lots of container queries, and basically saying if it's this particular width, I think I did it based on rems or ems, I can't remember exactly. But if the container is this particular width, use this particular font size from the hierarchy, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And those font sizes are also responsive, like based on the viewport width. So it's pretty, like, there's like multiple layers here of like, but it works. It actually worked. It worked pretty well. It's not perfect by any means, but I was been squishing them about, and it's all been looking pretty nice.
You've mentioned container queries. Obviously, they're different to media queries in that media queries are the width of the browser, whereas container queries are the width of the thing that I'm inside. If that makes sense, I think.
Yes.
Are they widely supported now in browsers? Like, can we go ahead and just use them, or and if we do use them and the browser doesn't support them, what's kind of the fallback? Does it just default back to a media query, or just does nothing?
Defaults. It'll default to the thing. The rule that was outside of the container, the initial rule, outside the container query. So let me just double check.
Progressive, though. It's not going to break anything.
If you, so they're so well supported now.
Right.
Container query units globally 92.77%.
Pretty good then.
So that's pretty huge.
There's always one browser, isn't there, that a lot of people use that you're like, that doesn't have it.
Yeah.
Is the one of those?
I'm using Can I Use? And I'm just looking at usage relative. So iOS Safari pre 16.0 obviously doesn't do it. The browser for Android, the UC browser for Android, I don't know what that is. Doesn't support it. IE11 obviously doesn't support it.
Yeah.
Safari 3.1 to 15.6. And Chrome,
they're
anything.
Old,
they're old, but like I can see that these they're still being used. iOS Safari is still the worst offender. So people with their ancient iPhones, but
yeah. Well, give it a go.
I'd say that's enough support. The fact that the information will still be on the screen, it just will be at the wrong font size.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. Elliot requests that you can blog about how you tackle these CSS issues.
Yeah, I could.
Yeah, you should.
I could.
You should. Be good.
Yeah. All right.
Good. So that's good progress. Next on the list was block binding efforts. So, I'm sure you're all aware, the WordPress 6.7 came out with an update to the block bindings API. Block bindings, so you can bind different data to a block. Custom fields being the obvious answer, show the value of a custom field in a paragraph. Dead simple, but you can do that. And now it has a UI. So that was the difference. Before you had to do it in code and stick a little JSON string above your block in the code editor. Whereas now there's a UI to do it. So we were chatting, weren't we, on our little break this week about lots of websites have the same things. So we really need to start standardizing things. And we came up with a list. Most websites have testimonials. So how are we going to deliver testimonials? Can we just build something that we just constantly reuse? Most websites have people, about page, displaying people, or in this case, it's like the governor's page that's going to display all the governors of the school and things like that. Can we just have a plugin that handles the delivery of people or person things and like that? So I went about having a look at it, and I noticed that when I was watching the WordPress 6.7 pre-release YouTube live stream, that Nick Diego was talking about the very same thing. He got this Your People plugin that delivered a person post type, and not only that, it sort of delivered the templates that would be used to present those. Now, they're all overridable, so that's fine. We can change them for different instances. But he was using custom fields to store things like, the person's email address, their LinkedIn URL, their Twitter URL, whatever. And he was then using the block editor or the site editor to build the template and output that data on the page. And then that would be saved in the plugin as a template, registered and so on, so that it was available to use and then overwritten. So I thought, what a good idea. I wonder if we could do something similar, trying to make something that we can just really reuse and keep things much more straightforward. So I went about trying to do that, and I just came across a few problems that I can't fix. And I'm sure they're either a bug or I've just got something completely wrong. And one or two things that just caught me out that might help you. So when you using block bindings, you must register your metadata with WordPress. Now, usually you don't. Like, it never gets registered with WordPress. And if WordPress doesn't know about it, it won't show up in the block editor. So there's a function called register meta or register post meta that you can use. So I did all that, and I still couldn't get the attributes panel showing on the right-hand side. So there's a little panel, on the right in the, what's it called, the inspector toolbar on the right-hand side, the sidebar. And there's just no attributes in there. So I found out there's two things that I was doing wrong. The first one is that when you register your meta, okay, it must not have, an underscore to start with. Usually I've been used to doing underscores when you register meta because then they don't show up in the list of the old style custom field list. Well, if they start with an underscore, it just didn't register them as like a usable metadata on the site. So if you're using that, make sure they don't have an underscore on them. And the second thing is my person post type. Well, there's two issues with my person post type. One of which, it must have the supports argument and custom fields must be supported. Which, when you think about it, is obvious. Like, I want to bind custom fields using attributes, so I should have that supported on the post type. But like, I never actually want to see them in the interface. I don't want the meta box at the bottom. So it didn't make sense to me to say that I want that in there. So, when I was reading the docs, there was nothing on there that said you must have that on your post type, custom fields must be supported.
Yeah.
That's what it seems to be anyway. So I did that and it was fine. And then the last issue was I was using the new register block template function, which is where you tell WordPress, hey, I'm a plugin and I've got a template for this post type that I want to use. And I always prefix my post types. We've had this discussion on this show before. I always prefix them with like HD or whatever the project's called. And every time I prefixed the post type, it wouldn't work in the registered block template. As soon as I took the prefix off, it would work. And interestingly, Nick Diego's example didn't have a prefix. It was just called person. So I don't know whether that's a bug or whether I'm doing it slightly wrong. I've got the wrong end of the stick with the functions and where I'm putting my names. But I couldn't get it to register the template when my post type had a prefix. I was trying to register the single template, and it wasn't having any of it. And as soon as I took the prefix off the post type, there it is, shows up in the site editor under templates for my plugin.
That's weird, isn't it?
So whether that means we're going to have to go without the prefix or whether that's something I'm doing wrong, I'm not so sure. But if anyone knows, then let me know.
It sounds like an odd one. Sounds like a bug.
That's what I thought. Mark says, maximum length on the post type key. I assume you mean the name of the post type, the slug. It was just HD underscore person, so I don't think that was very long, unless that was me. But no, I don't think so. But yeah, strange, very strange. Yeah. Anyway, so that was my block binding efforts. It does look good though. The other thing you struggle to do is we often in our templates we would say, get me this piece of metadata, whatever it is. If I have this metadata, output this markup. So you don't get any output if the value hasn't been added. You can't do that. So because you're just saying to the block editor, display the value of this thing here. So there's a few options. I think Nick's block visibility plugin allows you to show or hide a block based on the presence of a metadata. And you can actually also do it with CSS. I realized there is a CSS. If the children of something is empty, hide the container. So you could potentially do something like that. It's not brilliant, but it would work. So there you go. Block bindings.
Very good. Very good. Very good. So last up, Blue Sky. Who's on Blue Sky these days? It seems like the whole of WordPress is moving across, and many, many others. Apparently, they had 1 million signups. Was it yesterday?
I saw on the news they had some outages as well. I think, haven't they? Something.
Yeah, there's some. Yeah, But I think if you're growing that quickly, I think that can be forgiven, I think. So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I've got some thoughts on Blue Sky. I've been trying to leave and get other people to leave Twitter/X for a while. And so I jumped on the Mastodon thing and then fizzled out almost instantly. I just didn't get on well with it at all. I didn't jump on the Threads thing because I'm trying to de-meta my life. So I try not to have any meta projects in my life at all. So when Blue Sky came along, I think I signed up a while ago and it was pretty quiet. But obviously the US election seems, and the Muskification of and Trumpification of Twitter/X is obviously pushing a lot of people. And you need that, don't you? Like, I mean, what a boon for Blue Sky for that to happen. But I'm also, it feels like Twitter. It feels like early stage Twitter in a way.
It does. Definitely.
Looks like Twitter. It functions like Twitter. But I still have concerns. Like, what is going to stop it just becoming another X? I mean, is there anything inherent with Blue Sky, the way it's funded, the way it's built, the way it's not like Mastodon? I don't think, in the sense that it's like, what's the right word? Not distributed, but there's a word. Can't remember it. But yeah, I'm just, so right now it feels good, but I've got my pessimist's head on, thinking as soon as this gets popular, someone buys it, people want to start making money out of it, and it.
That was my question, because I looked this morning. I was thinking, like, it's free. Why is it free? Like, and Elliot said here, like, there's no ads. No, there isn't any ads. So whoever's making this, why are they making it? And that's why I was wondering myself. I mean, it's great now, but like you said, what does that look like in the future? Be interesting to know.
Yeah.
I don't really know who is making it, and is it open source? Is it? I don't know. I couldn't really find any information about it.
Yeah. If nothing else, I quite like just the fact that it sends maybe a small message, but a message to people that own these platforms and like Musk, that he can't just do what he wants and everyone's just going to put up with it. There is a limit, and when there's a decent looking alternative, people will move. So hopefully that's a good thing going forward. But yeah. So anyway, we're both on there at the moment. I don't think we've got an account for this show yet, do we?
We have now.
Oh, Mark, did you do it?
We're at wpcafe.show. There you go.
Skills. I haven't done the domain name thing yet, but
have you not? So this morning I installed visited deck.blue, which is on the Blue Sky page, is like one of the, I don't know what they call it, featured apps or something or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's like old school TweetDeck. It's really good. I quite like it. You can put your little columns on, and it's just nice. So if you've not used deck.blue and you used to like TweetDeck, then give it a go. It looks really good. I said I've only used it this morning and today, but it does have good vibes, so it's good.
I'll check that out. Definitely. So I'm gonna try to spend more time there than I do on X going forward, and just do my bit to kickstart the WordPress community over there.
Yeah, me too. I'm gonna try. Yeah. I just wish it was in. I use Sendable to publish a lot of my stuff. I don't necessarily interact with people on Sendable, but I use it to schedule some things and so forth. And Blue Sky isn't available yet, so I signed up for a different one just to try it. I was never going to pay for it, but just to try if it works. And you can't do video because the API for Blue Sky doesn't support video, so it is quite restrictive at the moment. But I'm sure it'll get better and better. But yeah, stuff like that isn't quite as easy to do at the moment and fit in with your workflows. But we've got to give it a go. So we will.
Yeah, I think it's generally a positive thing. So yeah, all good. Well, we'll wrap it up there for today's show. Thank you so much for watching and listening along. You can catch us. So we are on X at WP Cafe Show. We are on Blue Sky at wpcafe.show. We're on the web, wpcafe.show. And we're on YouTube on the High Rise Digital channel under the WP Cafe playlist. So lots of places to find us. If you did enjoy today's show, please do consider leaving a like, consider subscribing, and even sharing. Share on these platforms. Yeah, share this on Blue Sky. There you go. There's your homework for this week. And we'll catch you again next week. See you soon.
Bye-bye.